So let's get these traditional formalities out of the way. I'm Sam, 53 years old, originally from the wonderful rural county of Yorkshire in the north of England. I've been married to Angela for 7 years now, having met her 9 years ago. I was widowed after the sad passing of my first wife, Amanda, Mandy to me. She fell victim to cancer at the age of just 42, leaving me and our 4-year-old daughter, Jessica, completely devastated. I was broken after Mandy died, but I kept my bedside promise to keep living, to not grieve forever, and to make Jessica's childhood as happy as possible. 2 years after Mandy died, I met Angela. We met at the launch of a new wine bar and bistro in York. I went there with some friends, and she was leading the PR team, providing a lot of meet and greet and flirting, especially with me. She was divorced. Quite unexpectedly, her husband, with whom she had lived for more than 20 years, cheated on her. She was deeply hurt by being left for another woman and was left with bitterness towards any man who was caught cheating. Actors, athletes, politicians. She scolded them all. It seemed strange to me that any man could cheat on her, because she was a very attractive, elegant lady who knew how to dress and was proud of herself. I was also against cheating. I worked as a police officer for 30 years and witnessed too many of my colleagues take risks and then lose their happy lifestyles for casual sex or an affair. Why they thought the grass would be greener on the other side of the fence was a complete mystery to me. Their stories were always the same. They met their real soulmate, left their wife and children, took a financial blow in the subsequent divorce, and then regretted leaving in the first place. I had virtually no sympathy for them when they wanted to share their grief with me. I was not with my first wife of my own free will. Cancer took her from me. They made a conscious decision to give up what they had and are now unhappy. My suffering was imposed and I resented it. I never stopped thinking about Mandy, even after I met Angela. I felt sad from time to time when Jessica asked about her mom, but Angela was very kind to her, and they became close. I loved being in our little community, but Angela always felt like she was being compared. Perhaps subconsciously I made comparisons, but I never said anything. In my experience, women have a sixth sense about this, and I have to admit that Mandy was my true one, but I love them both, albeit in slightly different ways. Notice I say love and not loved, because I will always love memories, oh Mandy, and much love Angelo. I retired as an officer at the age of 49, and at first did not do any paid work for some time, doing DIY, traveling, golfing, and cycling, and then decided that I had enough free time and needed to find myself a job. I tried several options, but eventually returned to the police force, this time as a civilian. Around this time, I began to notice some changes in myself, physical and emotional. Physically, I felt unwell. I lacked energy, and from a passionate lover, I turned into a bored, not today. I had no libido at all and had no idea why things had changed. Maybe it's a sudden change in lifestyle after retirement? Whatever it was upsetting me and Angela. One day, out of the blue, Angela asked me, "Are you seeing someone else?" "What?" I answered. "Where did you get the idea?" "Because you show no interest in me," she said decisively. "And we haven't made love since you retired." I was completely dumbfounded, but she was right. We had not been intimate for several months, and I, as usual, put problems aside when I could not cope with them. I hugged her and burst into tears before quickly reassuring her that I hadn't cheated on her. Then I sat her down and listed all the things that were bothering me. Lack of libido was one thing, but I also felt like I was losing strength in my legs and tripping too often. There were times when I would just walk into the store like I was drunk. My legs just wouldn't do what my brain asked them to do. We hugged again and agreed that we needed medical intervention. An appointment was made with neurologist Dr. Brown, who thoroughly tested my coordination, reflexes, and balance, after which he sat back in his chair, took off his glasses, and asked what we thought the problem might be. Angela quickly said that we weren't thinking that far ahead, but I had already consulted Dr. Google and came up with the following. I think I probably have either MS, multiple sclerosis, or, worse, MND, motor neuron disease. I knew the outcome would be bad either way, but I was almost hoping I had MS, as I understood the enormity and inevitability of MND. Dr. Brown was great. He smiled and looked at me comfortingly. There is something to it, but it's neither one nor the other, and I'm sure there's a problem in your spine causing the nerve problems. I covered my face with my hands and burst into tears, only having time to thank him. "Let's do an MRI and decide how we will treat you," he said. I felt enormous relief, and when the diagnosis was eventually made of an arterial abnormality putting pressure on the nerves in the spinal cord, the necessary surgery was already scheduled. 3 weeks later, the surgery was done, and a week later I was home, in great pain and discomfort, but glad to have met Dr. Brown. If I had not sought help, it turns out that within 6 months, I would have been paraplegic. The recovery was very difficult and required a lot of strength from all of us. But over time, gradually gaining strength and taking my time, I felt much better. I was told that the surgery was successful but could not repair all the damage already done to my nerves, so I would have to accept that I would not be able to run or cycle as fast as before. I was just glad I didn't use a wheelchair and was determined to be as close to my old self as possible. Another thing that was fixed was my libido. Some blood tests showed that the pituitary gland was not functioning, so my body was not producing testosterone as it should. This is easily corrected with injections every 10 weeks. And this is the result. Now life could return to normal, or so I thought. I talked to Angela and told her I felt like a man again, and I wanted us to try to get our sexual spark back. She looked slightly worried and said that she herself had not had any desires for some time. She said that menopause had taken its toll and that she no longer felt sexy. I assured her that I found her very sexy, but said that I understood and was glad that she needed to adapt to life after menopause, but that we could seek help from her doctor. We agreed to give her time and see how things went. Over time, I found myself wanting her more and more. I remembered how we had enjoyed sex not so long ago, and I found her more and more attractive. I remembered our first intimate night together, when she was shocked by my ability to make love. For our first romantic night as a couple, we decided to stay in a luxury hotel, and the 4-poster bed was especially luxurious. I loved her slowly and with pleasure. She reached climax more than once, and was shocked by the possibilities that had opened up to her. Her ex-husband had not been a good lover, and at 45 she was experiencing great sex for the first time. This was her sexual awakening, and she was grateful but angry that it took her so long to find it. "Oh my God, Sam, this is just amazing. I have never had a lover like you. Thank you." Then she started crying. I didn't know if it was because she realized what she had missed or out of delight, but it didn't matter. "Don't thank me, Angela, and we're not done yet anyway." She gave me a very short, slightly shocked look, which was quickly replaced by an impudent and not very innocent smile. She did as I asked, and I had her, until I was ready to explode. She clearly sensed the inevitable. "Come on, Sam, please," she begged. "I cannot wait any longer." I happily agreed, and I have to say that it was probably one of the 5 best finals of my life. It was so strong that I had to hug her waist again to stay on my feet. After climax, my thighs trembled noticeably for at least a full minute, as if an electric current was running through my body. That first time we made love is still etched in my memory and makes me blush when I think about it. But that was almost 7 years ago, and it felt like we were a long way from where we were now. Our sex life was fantastic until my spinal abnormality and pituitary failure got the better of me. Angela loves sex. There were times when she was waiting for me when I finished a late shift, wearing the sexiest lingerie from Victoria's Secret or Ann Summers. When I returned home, she practically attacked me. "Now, Sam," she urged, "there's no time for dinner. Today you'll eat me as dessert." We then had a wonderful night of sex, combining romantic and slow lovemaking with vigorous sex. It was the best sex of our lives for both of us, and we giggled about it for weeks afterwards. So let's go back to today, 6 weeks ago to be exact. We were doing well, or so I thought. We spent time together, watched TV, went for walks, and recently returned from a short holiday in Scarborough. While watching a documentary on Channel C4 about unusual couples and their bizarre sexual fetishes, a program was shown about a famous cheating site. This was the site that accidentally leaked the personal information of its users in the US, embarrassing many hundreds of people. I commented that these scammers got what they deserved, and we laughed at how they would try to explain their membership to their wives and husbands. A few days later, when I was browsing one of the famous adult sites, the same cheating site appeared on the screen. Frankly, I became curious and went to it. I was interested in seeing what women had to say through their advertising, called a profile on the site, so I created a completely fake account. It was initially free, but if I wanted to send messages, I would have to buy some very expensive tokens. I wasn't going to do anything, so I skipped that part. However, I now had access to profiles and blurry photographs of all sorts of women, and some of what I wrote was quite explicit. Others were housewives who were bored and looking for excitement, and some were just singles looking for partners. I was wondering why a single woman would choose this site rather than Tinder, POF, or any of the other regular online dating sites. Another thing I discovered was that while men were required to pay for full membership, women could join for free. A little unfair in these times of equality, I thought. I created an account for Ben, 45 years old. Okay, I took a few years off. Married but bored and wanting to meet regularly for sex. I was happy to travel, but only wanted fun without commitment because I didn't want to risk my marriage. It was a pretty vanilla description, but I only included the highlights since I didn't expect or want any messages. I looked through all the profiles, there were hundreds of them, so I narrowed my search down to women within a 50-mile radius of me. I used Leeds as my city, as it was only 20 miles away. I also included an age range of 40 to 60 to see how many there would be. There were 35 potential cheaters within a fairly small radius. I was surprised, but found it interesting. I've read them all. Of particular interest was a woman from Leeds. Her profile was, "Hi, I love sex. I like sex in any form. Send me a photo of your manhood, and if I like it, I will invite you to have me." That's all. No description of herself, no mention of hobbies, no age of the men she wanted. I was quite amused by her self-confidence and courage. Of course, no man would agree to something so frank, I thought. And what kind of women come here? But some commercials depicted much more normal people. Many women actually praised their husbands and made it clear that they would not do anything to jeopardize their marriage or lifestyle. I even sympathized with these women because they all said the same thing. They lacked intimacy and the feeling of being wanted or wanted. I sympathized with them because I knew what it was like to love someone but also suffer from a lack of intimacy. Essentially, like me, they were married for love, but they lacked sex. I couldn't justify their desire to cheat, but I also understood their pain and disappointment. Flipping through the pages, I came across Lonely Christina, 55 years old. She was from York and loved her husband, but was no longer in love with him. She enjoyed his company, but loved him more as a brother than as a lover and wanted someone to rekindle her passion. There were two aspects that immediately attracted me to this profile. Firstly, she is from York, since our village is on the outskirts of this city. The second is her name. Since Christina is Angela's middle name, it's probably a coincidence. I thought, or better said, I hoped. Then something else struck me. Why did this site appear when I was looking at an adult site? I'm not a computer expert, but I know that some websites track IP addresses. Maybe it appeared because someone was watching it from our IP address. Now my brain added 2 plus 2, and it came out to 5. At first I didn't do anything. I didn't dare write to Lonely Christina, 55, for fear of what she might reveal, but I had a sick feeling and felt I had to find out. I remembered Angela asking me if I was cheating when I was going through the zero sex drive phase before my diagnosis. If I didn't mind her asking me, then surely she wouldn't mind if I asked her the same question, right? Wrong. So we sat and watched TV. Jessica was in her room talking to her friends on Instagram or something, so it was just the two of us. "Angela, can I ask you something and please don't be angry?" I said nervously. Of course, dear. You can ask me anything, she answered softly. This evening I sensed something was on your mind. And I immediately asked, are you cheating on me or will you ever cheat on me? Her answer was quick and precise. Damn it, Sam. Where the hell did you get that from? You just haven't been interested in me lately. Do you still find me attractive? I asked. The slight pause before answering made me fear the worst, but then she said, Of course I found it. You are still a very handsome man. Unfortunately, this was followed by a statement that every man in such a situation fears. It's not about you, it's about me. We hugged and she said I had nothing to worry about. She's about to go see the doctor we talked about earlier, and she's sure there's something out there that can help rekindle the fire of her passion. She suggested we go to bed, and we went. When we lay down, we took our usual position. I hugged her, clasping her breasts with my hands, lightly stroking, but not caressing. After about 5 minutes, she turned her head slightly and whispered for me to lie on my back. When I turned over on my back, she turned to me and took care of my manhood. I like doing this for you, she said. Then something strange began to happen. Everything she did was incredibly pleasant, but not typical of her behavior. I climaxed. I couldn't believe what was happening. Angela, who hasn't been interested in sex lately, looked into my eyes and gave me the most lustful smile. How do you like it, Sam? She asked, already knowing the answer. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. What could I say other than, Damn, Angela, that was amazing. But why such a sudden change? You've never done this before. She just kissed me on the cheek and said goodnight. And that was the end of it. No explanation. And although I was completely satisfied, I couldn't help but wonder what made her suddenly change. However, I slept well. The next morning passed as if nothing had happened, and there was no talk of my amazing pleasure for the night. Angela went to work, and I played a Thursday morning round of golf with some guys I knew from the club. When I got home, I felt very excited. I spent the morning remembering what I experienced yesterday, and due to lack of concentration, my golf game suffered. I went on the iPad, turned it on private browsing, and went to the cheating site. To my surprise, there was a small pink dot indicating that I had received a message. I looked and was shocked to see that it was from Lonely Christina 55 and read, Hello, I see that you recently viewed my profile. Thanks for stopping by. I like your profile, but I would like to know more about you. Looks like we live pretty close to each other. I'm married, but looking for some NSA fun with a younger man. I don't want to ruin my marriage because my husband is a good man, but I need sex, and it doesn't excite me anymore. Do you think you could help me, Ben? I didn't know what to write, so I kept it simple and decided to be clever by adding some fish hooks. Since she messaged me, I could respond without spending money, so I wrote, Hello, Lonely Christina 55. Thank you for writing to me. Sorry to hear that your husband doesn't do this for you. Is he much older than you? I am a retired police officer. What do you do for a living? And yes, I will be happy to try to help you. And with the press of a button, the message went away. I didn't get an answer right away, but it was just the beginning of the day, and I assumed that most people were busy during the day. Angela came home as usual and greeted me as usual with a peck on the cheek. I said I had a casserole for tea and would she like it now or later? She said later because she needed to do some work on her laptop and also wanted to take a shower before we sat down at the table. The evening passed completely without incident. Before going to bed, Jessica sat with us for a while, and we also went to bed at our usual time. There were no repetitions today, just cuddles and sleep. Angela left for work as usual, so I immediately logged onto the iPad. Of course, Lonely Christina 55 replied, This is too bad, Ben. My husband is a former police officer, and I can't risk meeting someone who might know him. It's a shame because I want sex, and you seemed perfect to me. If proof were needed, I would think this would be it. Think outside the box, Sam. Then it dawned on me. Hello, Lonely Christina 55. Yes, it's a pity, but I was a police officer. I worked all my service in South London, so it is unlikely that I had the opportunity to work with your husband. If you want sex, then our desires coincide because I need it very much. Do you have photos to share? Ben. The next day, she replied, Ben, that's great, and no, my husband couldn't have known you at work. I would not like to say what field I work in. I hope you will understand me. Yes, I need sex, and your offer sounds like you can satisfy my desires. I have some photos, but I'll only let you see them if I can see yours. To be honest, Ben, I don't care what you look like, so we can exchange photos or just take the risk and meet to fuck each other. And just so you know, Christina's not my real name, but it is my middle name. Let's meet and have sex, Ben. Let me know when you're free. My heart skipped a few beats when I read this. This is 99.9% my Angela. A woman who was cheated on, who hated everyone who cheated, and now she's about to become one herself. Hell, this might not even be the first sexual encounter she had planned. How could she do this to me? Why was I suddenly not good enough for her? Why does she risk losing her husband and adopted daughter? I was still looking at the iPad when Jessica returned from school. She asked if something had happened because I looked sad. She asked if I was repeating my old tricks of looking at old photos of me, Jessica, and her mom on the iPad and getting depressed. So I took the easy option and said yes. Don't worry, Dad, she said. Mom would want us to be happy and Angela is wonderful. I know she would approve. The irony of her words made me feel even worse, but I managed to pull myself together. How can I deal with this? I decided that I needed to trust one of my old cop friends, Mike. We had been on many missions together, including the Bradford riots in the early 2000s, and I trusted him more than anyone I had ever worked with. He was stunned when I told him everything. He still gave Angela the benefit of the doubt, saying that it most likely wasn't her, after all. Many women have a middle name of Christina, and her husband could be any constable in Yorkshire. Even if it was her, it could just be dirty, flirty talk, and just because she suggested meeting up for sex doesn't mean it would be anything more than an internet fantasy. A lot of people, he said, talk about it but don't actually go through with it. He compared it to how we men watch adult films and fantasize about models. Mike agreed to work with me again on this undercover investigation. Angela has never met Mike, so she won't suspect anything if he pretends to be 45-year-old Ben. He was actually 52, but my Angela was 59, so they would both be guilty of lying about their age. We borrowed a micro spy camera and audio communications equipment, ready for the rendezvous. Mike was scheduled to meet with lonely Christina 55, while I watched and listened remotely in my car parked nearby. All I had to do was organize a sexual meeting. Hello, lonely Christina 55. Yes, let's meet and fuck each other. I'm already ready for you, and I hope you are too. I have a room booked at the Travelodge on the A64 outside York for this Friday. See you at 10 in the morning if you can make it. I knew that she would be able to come since every other Friday is her day off. Of course, the answer came, see you there. I'll be wearing a long gray coat and a brown mulberry handbag. See you at the front desk at 10. I won't go there alone. Too awkward. How will I recognize you? I immediately replied, dark hair, 5'8" tall, black leather biker jacket and jeans. And by pressing the send button, the trap was set. For the next 2 days, I was so nervous that I felt constantly sick. Angela acted normal, but she knew something was wrong with me. She kept asking me what was wrong, if she had done something to upset me, if it was something with Jessica. I didn't attach any importance to it, but it was seething inside me all the time. I feared Friday, like a condemned man fears the day of execution. On Thursday night, I couldn't sleep and watched in horror as Angela left for her betrayal on Friday morning. I was still hoping that I had it all wrong and that it was just a coincidence. Angela came looking for me at night and found me crying in the kitchen. She hugged me and begged me to tell her what happened. I really wanted to tell her what I was 99.9% sure of, but I needed to know for sure. If I told her what was planned for Friday, she could deny everything, and I would have no evidence but only suspicions for the rest of my life. So I said I had a bad dream that I was going to lose her the same way I lost Mandy all those years ago, and it seemed so real. She told me to stop being stupid and go back to bed. I said I would follow her, but decided to sleep on the living room couch instead. I woke up at 7:30 a.m. and made sure Jessica was ready for school before she got on the bus at 8:30 a.m. Angela came downstairs already dressed in jeans, heels, and a tight sweater that showed off her still very slender body. "You look good," I said. "Are you going somewhere?" She answered casually, "Didn't I tell you that I'm meeting the girls for an endless brunch today?" "No, I'm sure I would remember," I answered. "Well, that's okay. Are you playing golf today?" she asked. "No, my love, but I need to go somewhere. I'll tell you about it when I see you later." "Oh, okay. Bye then," was all she said. I hugged her and kissed her on the lips, after which she said, "I love you, Sam. Forget your bad dreams. They will never come true." And I believed that mine was about to come true. I called Mike to tell him that Angela had left and he came to pick me up. We still had plenty of time to get everything ready, but I was so nervous that he had to pull over so I could throw up on the side of the road. Mike gave me some water and we went to the motel. The equipment was simple, just a small laptop and an earphone for me. Mike got out of the car and walked into the lobby before asking the receptionist where the bar was. Then he returned to the car to confirm that the equipment was working. I said that I saw everything and clearly heard what he and the administrator said. And then it dawned on me. We don't have any plan for what will happen when she comes to meet him. Obviously, the room isn't booked, but Angela shouldn't know that. So after the first meeting, what should happen? We agreed that Mike would suggest a Dutch manly drink at the bar, and I would have time to go in and face them. Mike will play innocent and leave us alone with what follows a quarrel, argument, or discussion, but will not reveal that he is participating in deception. I wanted to see if she would confess and if I would have to reveal what I already knew. At 9:50 a.m., Mike got out of the car and waited at the main entrance for lonely Christina 55 to arrive. And then I saw a car driving into the parking lot. It was Angela's Audi, and I watched as she nervously approached Mike. Now I was looking at the laptop and waiting for her to speak. How I didn't throw up again, I still don't know. She walked up to Mike, smiled nervously, and asked carefully, "Are you Ben?" Mike replied, "Yes, and you must be lonely Christina 55? I could see that she was nowhere near as confident as her online profile showed and was actually nervous. Mike followed the script and asked if she wanted to grab a coffee at the bar or even something stronger, even though it was only 10 in the morning. She nodded and they went to find a seat at a small table. Mike started asking what she would like to drink and she asked for Irish coffee. They both sat in nervous silence until their drinks arrived, and then Angela spoke up. "Ben, I'm afraid I can't do this." She looked at Mike, and on the monitor, I saw tears rolling down her cheeks. "In fact, I never intended to meet anyone, and I even wrote you a message today asking that you not be here. I see on the app that you didn't read my message, and I wouldn't be so cruel as to just leave you here. It wouldn't be fair, and you seem nice. So, can I explain everything, please?" Mike asked her to continue, but she burst into tears. He gave her a napkin, and having calmed down, she slowly spoke again. "I went to the site out of curiosity. I like talking about sex dirty and open. I was interested in how the man would react, but I was never going to follow through. Even when I said that I was ready for you, it was pure fantasy, in fact. At that moment, I was stirring the pot and could not look less sexy." "I see," Mike said. "Well, what about the room that I booked and paid for?" "Oh, Ben, I'm so sorry. Let me give you the money." "I don't want you to pay the bill because of my stupidity," she almost begged. I felt like Mike was playing with her and using his old interviewing skills to get as much out of her as possible. "So, what about the husband you love but no longer lust after?" he asked, looking her straight in the eyes. "I love him very much, and now he is as sexy as the day I met him. We wouldn't do anything to hurt each other, and I'm sorry, Ben, but no matter how attractive you are, I won't go into a room with you today or any other day. We both had a few personal issues that affected our relationship, but now everything is settled, and we only want each other. I'm so sorry, Ben, and I hope you find the romance you want, but it can't be with me." And with that, Angela stood up, drank her Irish coffee in one gulp, and left the hotel. Mike waited 10 minutes before joining me in the car. He asked if I had seen and heard everything, and I confirmed that everything was clear as day. Mike said I should go home and talk to my wife. I was still dazed, but just as relieved as I had been when I first spoke with Dr. Brown, so I simply nodded, unable to speak. On the way, we agreed that we would keep our operation secret unless it became necessary in the future to reveal our deception. As we pulled up to the house, I saw Angela's car in the driveway. I turned to Mike and thanked him. He just smiled, shook my hand, and told me to leave. When I entered the house, Angela was in the room, bursting into tears. She looked at me and literally ran towards me, hugging me as tightly as you can imagine. "What's the matter?" I asked. "Why did you come back so quickly from an endless brunch with the girls?" "Something happened, Sam. I needed to get some things done, so brunch had to be canceled. I'm so glad you're home, but I have something to tell you, and I'm afraid you'll hate me. I had a crazy fantasy, and I stopped her before she could finish her sentence and told her that everyone has secret fantasies. "But why are you crying, honey?" I asked. "Fantasies do not harm anyone. I watch adult films and fantasize about models, but I would never do anything that could hurt you. I know that you won't hurt me either, so keep your fantasies a secret. I don't mind, and I don't need to know them." I smiled and wiped her tears. Then Angela said, "I was thinking about your nightmare. I had a similar nightmare in which I thought I was losing you. It was terrible, and I couldn't get it out of my head. In addition, I started taking the pills that the doctor prescribed. They should restore my sexual appetite, but they can also make me even more emotional and irrational than usual." "Well then," I said, "maybe we should go upstairs and act out a real fantasy." She looked at me, and I saw how the sad expression on her face almost immediately turned into a sly smile. "Oh, Sam, you have no idea how much you mean to me." "Then you better show it to me," I suggested as we walked upstairs to our bedroom. She looked straight at me, tilted her head slightly, and put a finger to her lips, like a puzzled mathematician pondering a quadratic equation. "Wait here, Sam. Turn on the music and give me 5 minutes. I need to change." And with that, she went into our bathroom. I turned on the music as she asked and sat on the bed, waiting for Angela to return. She looked absolutely stunning when she came out of the bathroom. She was wearing black silk stockings and suspenders and a lacy black bra. Wow, that's all I could say. We made love as if we were in a completely new relationship, and we both had at least 2 climaxes. Afterwards, we just held each other, enjoying the post-coital glow for at least an hour until we heard Jessica come through the front door after school. I shouted that we were both upstairs, and Jessica just laughed and shouted that we should not stop because of her, but also not make any noise, since she had homework. She is a very sassy, daring, and smart girl, just like her mother. We never talked about that meeting between Lonely Christina 55 and Ben. Angela never found out that Ben was actually Mike, and her profile disappeared from the cheating site within hours. 6 or so weeks later, we are working on our relationship, and I'm very happy to report that Angela's pills are certainly having the desired effect. The only thing I want now is for our secret fantasies to remain fantasies. As for our joint fantasies, let them be. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.